This is Ross Izzard, and this is the Backcountry Fly Fishing Podcast, where we talk about fly fishing in more interesting places. This is the end of season 4. It's kind of hard to believe that we've come to the very end of our 4th full season of the Backcountry Fly Fishing Podcast. This is actually our 50th episode, which is kind of wild for me, to be honest with you. This started out as just sort of a hobby or a thing that I was doing because someone told me that I should and because it was fun. And then it turned into something that was really fun. And then it turned into something that was really helpful to a whole bunch of people. And bada bing, bada boom, here we are more than a year later and 50 episodes deep with no intention of stopping anytime soon. So it's been great. And I wanted to take a minute just as we close out season 4 to say thanks to all of you who have taken the time to write reviews, to send me letters, to send me emails, to ask me to take you to lunch, which I'll be doing actually with a fan in Castle Rock just next week, which will be a lot of fun. It's really awesome hearing from you guys. It's cool to see this community of backcountry anglers come together around something as simple as a podcast. And it has been so awesome to be able to give you some information that I hope has been helpful. But also to hear from you, hear your tips, hear your stories, hear about your failures. It's just been really cool to get to know all of you through this project. And the project itself has been an awful lot of fun. So we will be back in about 6 weeks with season 5. It's going to be a little while until we get that rolling, in part because we always take a break between seasons and you guys are used to that. But in part because in a couple of weeks, I am going to Mongolia. I was given an opportunity to hop on a plane and fly 6,000 miles across the earth to go fish the Amur River for taimen and Amur pike and a whole bunch of other interesting stuff that you just can't get anywhere else. And as soon as they said that we'd be sleeping in teepees and yurts, it was tough for me to say no. So I'm going to go do that the first couple of weeks of October. I'm expecting that to be spectacular. Mongolia is the least populous country on earth. This terrain is some of the most remote terrain on earth. And I cannot wait to get out there, get in the water, take some pictures, write about it, talk about it, and share it with you all when I get back. It's going to be a ton of fun. In the meantime, I am still fishing, still doing my thing here. But, we're starting to wind down sort of the main backcountry season. So just like we talked about last week with the Fishing the Flip episode, it's time to start working your way down in elevation. I'm certainly doing that. I was just out there today on a favorite creek of mine, really not a backcountry creek, but still beautiful in its own way. And it was starting to look like fall already. The bushes are starting to turn, the trees won't be too far behind, and fall's coming. So, get ready for that fall fly fishing. We've already got an episode about that, but we'll probably talk more about it when we're back here for season 5. And just keep enjoying yourself. It's a little bit different in the fall, but that doesn't mean that you have to give it up and hang up the fly rod. I'm certainly not. And so I hope in this interim between seasons, you guys will be out there staying active, staying after the fish, and doing your thing on the lakes and streams until we hit the god-awful season of winter fishing and nymphing. God help us all. So I hope you've enjoyed season 4. I've really enjoyed being able to use this season to get into some topics that are not directly related to fishing, but related to why we go fishing. So the philosophical side, the mental health side, in some cases the emotional side, that stuff is really important to me. And I know it's important to a lot of you too. And I'm hoping that we can do more of it. I know a lot of you are here just to learn about fishing and tips and tricks, and I'm certainly happy to do my part to help you learn how to be a better angler generally and a better backcountry angler specifically. But I also think that this is such a special sport. It's just not like other things. And most of us are really not just doing it to catch fish. We're really not, especially not in the backcountry. So thank you to all of you who wrote in with your own accounts of why you do this thing and how it's helped you. That's incredible. I would love to do a full season at some point just about the mental health benefits and maybe just the health benefits generally of fly fishing. But I was really glad to see that connected with so many of you. And even though we will be back with a whole lot more fishing stuff, because that's why we're here, I would like to do more of it in the future. So thank you guys for indulging me in that. Thank you for engaging with it. And I'm really glad that you found that helpful because I think this is a special sport and it's special for us to be able to share it that way with each other. Now, before we close out completely and I shut up, we do have to talk about a little bit more politics. we started this season with an episode all about Senator Mike Lee's proposal to sell off millions of acres of federal land as part of the budget reconciliation bill. Thanks to the efforts of the folks who listen to this podcast and a whole bunch of really awesome advocacy groups, that was stripped from the final bill. So congratulations, guys. We won that one. And I feel incredibly proud to have been able to work on that, even in my small way. So thank you to all of you who engaged and spoke out on that issue, because it was incredibly important. But in keeping with politics generally and the political tone of the country currently, it ain't over yet, right? So I think I mentioned that in that episode. This was going to come back in some form or fashion. It's not quite back in its exact form yet, but we now have another issue on the table. And this involves the Roadless Rule, or more technically known as the Roadless Area Conservation Rule. So this thing dates back to 2001 with the Clinton administration, and it protects about, well, it's just under 60 million acres, which amounts to about 30% of the national forest lands across 38 states, and I actually think just a little bit in Puerto Rico. And it's not like wilderness designation. It doesn't offer the same level of protection, but what it does is it restricts the building of new roads in those forest areas, and it restricts most logging activities in those forest areas. And it was designed really to protect backcountry wildlands, protect streams and drinking sources, and also to conserve habitat for a whole bunch of different species who really rely on these areas to live and to thrive, and otherwise would be having a hard time, as well as obviously for recreation and climate benefits and a whole bunch of other stuff. It came into being with a whole bunch of public support. When it was enacted, I went and looked this up just for fun. When a federal agency makes a rule, in this case, the USDA, they have public comment on the rule. They put out the proposed rule, the public gets a chance to comment on it. And in this case, they included 400 public meetings and more than 1.6 million public comments, which is wild. And about 95% of those comments back in 2001 were in favor of this rule. So as of this summer, actually in June, USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins announced that they were going to go through with a formal rescission, which is basically a removal of the rule from current regulatory code. And in practice, what that means is it removes all of those protections from those nearly 60 million acres of forest land. For a while, it was just sort of a conversation. It wasn't super clear whether or not this was actually going to happen. There was a lot of bluster at that time. But no, in August, just last month, there was a notice in the formal Federal Register saying that they were going to go ahead with the proposed repeal of that rule and the protections on 44.7 million acres of land. And there are some exclusions to this, thanks to an executive order. It's kind of complicated. We don't have to talk about that in detail here. But there are some exclusions to it, yet we're still talking about nearly 45 million acres of land. Public comment on this works largely the same way as if it were a new rule, right? So just like when a new rule is proposed, there is a public comment period on any type of rule change, including a rescission, which means that public comment on this particular issue is now open. This episode will go up on Friday, September 12th. Public comments are due by midnight on Friday, September 19th, 2025, which means that you have exactly a week from when you hear me say this to get your public comment into the USDA and tell them what you think about the repeal of this rule. Now, I think it's important to note that this is a little bit different than full-blown sale of land, right? So it's not quite the same thing as what we saw the good Senator Mr. Lee propose to us just a few months ago, but the effect is still pretty concerning for those of us who spend a lot of time in the backcountry, and especially spend a lot of time in the backcountry fly fishing. Building roads into these areas, as you all know, can be very disruptive to them. A lot of the best backcountry areas do not have road access, and that's kind of what makes them so great and what keeps them wild. Road building itself is a pretty damaging process. And yes, I understand we need roads and we need highways. I'm not going so far as to say that we all need to walk around with no paths and no roads with pack mules. Although, to be honest with you, that does sound kind of fun. But I don't mean to suggest that roads are never good, but I do think that we need to be careful about removing protections that have stopped roads from being built into wild places wherever possible. And the same thing for streams, right? So once we start talking about road building, now you're talking about construction equipment, you're talking about bridges, then you start talking about logging operations, which, yes, again, I understand we do need logging, we do need wood, but we might not need it on these protected lands, at least at this stage of the game. Logging can be incredibly disruptive to rivers. Anybody who lives in an area with major logging operations knows this. It can be very, very damaging. And for those of us who love these streams and really enjoy them from a recreational perspective and an ecological perspective and a fly fishing perspective, the chances that you could see serious disruption to those lands and those streams are considerably higher if this rule is repealed than if it's allowed to remain in place. And of course, we could talk a lot more about that, right? I mean, we could talk about the drinking water aspect of this and how one of the original intents of the rule was to protect clean drinking water for really many millions of Americans. Obviously, industrial activity, road building, logging doesn't do a lot of good stuff on that front. We could talk about the conservation of land animal habitat, which isn't really related to fish, but is incredibly important to me, and I know to a lot of you who enjoy these wild places, as well as our fellow outdoorsmen and women who are into hunting and camping and just being outside for whatever reason they might choose. And then, of course, the climate aspect of this, which I'm not going to get into because I'm going to get a million hate letters, but there is something to be said from a climate perspective for maintaining large, intact forests, right? And the more we peel back these regulations, the harder it gets to do that. And I think that's probably the takeaway that I'll leave you with. It's not necessarily just about the rescission of this rule, which is problematic on its own, but it's about this sort of overarching trend that we are seeing focused on rolling back protections, right? And there are a whole bunch of different protections. You know, there's wilderness designation, there's national park designation, there's wild and scenic river designation, there's the roadless rule. There are tons of these protections out there. It's kind of a crazy patchwork. Some of them are higher level, some of them are lower level, but they're all designed to protect these wild places that we love. And what we're seeing is a concerted effort to roll them back one by one, sometimes with legislation, sometimes with regulatory change, sometimes with executive orders, but all with the same outcome, right? And all with the same intent, which is rolling back these protections, opening up these lands to, in most cases, either development or industrial usage. And anybody who has even the faintest hint of conservationism in their bones or who spends a lot of time in these places knows that those things cannot live in concert with an intact, pristine, protected wild. They can't. People are not good at that. And industry is not good at that. And honestly, developers are not good at that. So I would encourage you, as you think about this, if you were so inclined, send a comment into the USDA about the rescission of this particular rule. But also, if you're not involved and you're not paying attention, dude, set up an AI alert or a Google alert or just check the news or whatever, because this has been going on for a while. It's accelerating. It's going to keep going on going forward. And for those of us who love these places and who need these places for all the reasons we talked about this season, now is the time for you to wake up, start paying attention, and get active, because we want them to be there for us, we want them to be there for our kids, and we want them to be there for many generations to come. So check the show notes. I will put a link into both a couple of campaigns from Trout Unlimited and other folks who are working on this issue. You can use that to write your comment pretty easily and send it in without a huge headache. So if you're wanting to get involved, that's an easy way to do it. So check the show notes if you'd like to do that. Thank you guys for standing up for the wild places that we love. Thank you for everything that you've done. I have really enjoyed talking to you this season, and I can't wait to be back with season 5 here in just a little bit. Until then, take care, stay after it, be good. We'll see you soon. Till next time, this is Ross. Maybe I'll see you out there. Don't forget to send in that public comment.